Hi friends, I'm Jake,
And I miss.
and you're watching Board Down Under's review of Dune Imperium.
Let's talk about Dune Imperium. Let's talk about befriending Fremen. Let's talk about harvesting spice and the market price that you'll pay. Let's talk about Dune.
So what is Dune? Well, it's a hybrid deck building and worker placement game. Players are going to utilise agents to place them around the board to collect resources and gain influence with certain factions that can lead to victory points. And then players are going to use their cards to purchase other cards to increase their deck and do more powerful things throughout the game. Let's have a look at the components to start off with. The game comes with 3 different types of resources. You've got your spice, your Solari tokens, and of course your sought after water. In terms of the other components, you've got your starting cards. There's 4 of these. Everyone starts with the same set of cards. You've got some reserve cards. There's 3 different types of reserve cards, and multiples of those types, and they're always available in the market. You've then got the Imperial deck, which is the full market that you can use for deck building and buying. There are conflict cards, which provide rewards when you are winning a conflict or coming second or third place. Intrigue cards, which have a massive variety of things. Leaders, which each person will select at the start of the game. There's a number of components that each player gets to choose from. These tokens are used as troops in the conflict, as well as tokens on the board to track influence and that sort of thing. Agents, which everyone uses to actually do their worker placement. These tokens are used for victory points and the High Council. There's control flags, which are used on areas of the board that give you extra bonuses. And just the power tracker for in the conflict. There's a number of other tokens. These are alliance faction tokens, first player marker, and the Mentat. There's also House Hagal cards, which provide an AI to verse when you're playing in solo or 2-player mode. And that's all the components that come in the game. Let's take a look at how some of it plays. At the start of the game, each person's going to pick a leader to use. We've got leaders that range from complexity using these dots here, with more dots being more complex strategies that you'll need to try and adapt to. Each leader has a passive ability, which is something that happens at all times during the game, and a signet ability, which is an ability that happens when you play your signet card during an agent activation. More on that a bit later. Let's take a quick look at the board before taking a look at our different phases. The board's split up into different sections, which are color coordinated and shape coordinated. You've got green, your yellow, blue, and then your alliance factions down the side. Turns in Dune are split into generally 3 phases. There's the agent phase, which is worker placement. There's the reveal phase, which is where we do our deck building. And then there's the conflict/combat phase, which is the primary player interaction and conflict in the game. Let's check them out. Each player starts the game with 2 agents and can acquire a 3rd later on in the game by purchasing it. When it's your turn and you're having an agent phase, you're going to pick a card from your hand, and that's going to determine 2 things. The location in which you can place your agent based on the symbols that are found on the left of the card, and in this white box, any additional resources that your agent might earn by going to a location. So for example, by playing the dagger, I can place my agent in any of the green spots here. Each location has rewards to the right of it, so going in one of these locations will give you those rewards. Some locations, for example this blue location, requires additional resources found below the symbol that it represents. So these are 2 waters required to place your agent here. Some of the bonuses that you might get from your agent cards, the signet, which empowers your leader's Signet ability found in the bottom right. And for example, this card here also lets you draw an additional card into your hand when you play that agent. Faction locations found on the side here. By placing an agent in any of these spots, we would increase the influence marker up 1 on that space. Some locations identified by the crossed swords, and generally they have a portrait on the location. These enable us to move troops that are in our garrison, or sometimes in our pool, to the conflict area. More on that later. When you've got no more agents left to use for agent phases, you go into a reveal step. To reveal, take the cards that we didn't play in our hand and reveal them. At the bottom of each card, there is this space area, and those are the rewards that you'll get for revealing these cards. The first thing we'll talk about is persuasion points. When you reveal cards that have these blue diamonds with a number in them, those are persuasion points that are used to pay the cost for cards in the market. The market's made up of a reserve, which are duplicate cards that all are the same, and the cards that are revealed from the Imperial deck. At all times, there are 5 cards available to purchase from there. The other thing that happens is calculating the conflict power. So we can't actually see it here, but if I switch the board around, here we've got some units in the conflict, and we've got 1 card that has a sword. So for every unit that we've got in the conflict, we gain 2 points, and for every additional sword, we gain 1 point. So here we've got 4 greens, so I would go up to 8, and then I've revealed 1 with a sword, so I would go up to 9, and that would be my conflict score after going through the reveal phase. Once players have finished their agent and reveal phase, we move on to resolving combat. By this time, combat is mostly already determined, but there are intrigue cards that can alter the state of the power board. So watch out for sneaky people hoarding intrigue cards. When no one has an intrigue card that they want to play, we sort out who gets rewards based on the conflict, and a new one is turned over for the next round. Victory points are mostly gained as we play through the game. The main sources are influences with factions, where we gain points reaching 2 on the faction track, or we gain alliance tokens. Or there are conflict cards, which often provide victory points as the first person winner. There are also other ways, such as intrigue cards and actually Imperium cards too. At the end of any complete round, if there's a player that's got 10 or more victory points, the game ends. And generally speaking, whoever's got the most victory points on the track at that point is going to win, leaving everyone else in the dust. Or a Dune, I guess. So that's how it plays. Let's check out our thoughts.
So I guess let's start with the look and feel of the game. For me personally, I hadn't heard of Dune before, so I didn't know any of the IP and the backstory behind it. It was still thematic in the sense that I can, get that we're in a sci-fi planet and we're somewhere where there's a lack of resources and we need all this water and spice, but I have no idea what spice is or what it's actually used for. And so that, for me, was a bit of a downfall on the theme, just because I didn't know the IP that was behind it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I know a bit about the IP going back. I've not read the books, but I've watched the old sort of movies. I'm excited about the upcoming movies. I've played a couple of the Dune video games, so I know enough about it. And coming into this board game, yeah, I was happily sort of surprised with how they tied in at least what I know of the lore into it. There's one thing that I kind of wish they'd done a bit better. I was going to talk about it a bit later, but one thing that I didn't really get a sense of in the game was, impending trouble from the giant worms. I would love to see some aspect there where the giant worms are actually threatening, and there's not really anything like that in the game. But it's only a very, very minor sort of point. I loved the sci-fi theme, like the look, even from the board right down into the game. Just really nice. I liked the artwork on the cards. I thought that was fantastic. The actual board layout I thought was really, really nice. They've done a fantastic job in terms of segregating all the different areas of the board, so it's
Yeah.
quite easy to sort of know,
made it
hey,
simple to
I'm dealing
understand.
with this alliance, I'm dealing with this sort of faction, I'm dealing with, these areas of the game. So I think they did a really, really good job with the board as well. And yeah, just really liked the theme. I loved what they did with water in the game. I loved what they did with spice in the game. Yeah, I really think they did a fantastic job in terms of theme and just overall look and feel for a sci-fi game.
Yeah, cool. I guess that leads us into the components. You were talking about the water and the spice, and in the game they are little wooden tokens that you can use that were really cute. How else did you see the components?
Yeah, so as you said, the wooden tokens and that sort of stuff that there is in, that comes straight out of the box, I thought they were fine. There's little cubes that you sort of use as your soldiers and that sort of stuff. Nothing wrong with them. They're fine. The agents looked, quite good as well. The sort of other bits and pieces, so there's water tokens, coin tokens, which are just silver, that sort of stuff. Like, it really quite nice. Sort of basic, but at the same time,
nothing too fancy, but it all works.
Yeah, exactly. The cards were quite nice, fairly sturdy. Had one problem with the cards. I don't know whether it's just our copy that we ended up getting, but the backs of the cards, there was some discoloration there, which is sort of frustrating because I've not sort of got to a point yet, but there's a number of cards that do have different colors. I'll put up a picture so that you can sort of see, but you could get to a point where you kind of know,
memorize which those
exactly,
which
right. So I need to chase down whether or not that's just an issue with our copy, or whether it's a common problem with the game or that sort of thing. But yeah, that's kind of neither here nor there. They do have a deluxe upgrade.
Yeah, they do.
Yep, you can purchase that. That comes with some miniatures that really make the game pop.
Yeah, brings it more to life a bit more.
Yep, exactly. A bigger box that helps, the whole storage compartment and that sort of stuff. Lets you store everything. I think there's an add-on onto that deluxe sort of game that lets you get custom sleeves as well. So that sort of stuff's really great, I think. On top of the fantastic look and feel of the game, you'll also have, miniatures that pop it and that sort of stuff, make the board presence look fantastic. So pretty excited about that, and I also love that it's actually an optional, kind of...
Yeah, sure. You don't have to get that if you don't want to.
Yeah,
because you just want the basics to be able to play, you can get that, and it makes it more affordable.
Yep, and the game, we've not played with those deluxe components at all yet. The game's still, fantastic, even without them. But yeah, having them there as an optional feature is brilliant. Another thing with components is they do have a companion app that goes along with the game. At the moment, I think the companion app really, it sort of helps support when you want to play solo play, or if you want to play two players, you can use the app to kind of help move things along, and have a little bit less homework that you have to do, around the board. But my understanding is that this app will also bring out variations on the game and allow you to play 3 and 4 player modes differently. So that ties into replayability and that sort of stuff. So that'll be fantastic as they develop that app and evolve it. Yeah,
sounds good. In terms of the complexity of this game, I found it was quite long to learn and to understand the rules. But then once we were playing it, it just flowed really easy, and it was an easy game to play once we had done all that learning at the start. Was it any different for you?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I found... So when I was learning the game, it took me actually a little bit. I kind of, needed to reread the rules and that sort of stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's probably about 20 to 25 minutes to kind of, learn the game. And then once you're actually playing the game, or, I would say it's 20 to 25 minutes to teach the game. I think learning the game from scratch, reading the rule book and kind of understanding it, having to reread things, you're probably looking at slightly longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of teaching the game, it's probably about 20 to 25 minutes. There's 3 kind of main phases that players need to wrap their head around, I think. And it just sort of puts it slightly on the more complex side of things. But setting the game up, takes about, I think, 5 minutes once you know what you're doing, maybe even less. So it's pretty easy to set up once you've got that context of what's going on. And once a player does get into the game, a brand new player, I think it's only about 2 rounds before it really starts flowing smoothly.
Yeah.
The game, despite having a bit of an initial learning curve, the teach is a bit long. The actual gameplay itself is super smooth. I find it, after a couple of rounds, it was pretty easy to understand, what's going on.
While you're on that, you're just speaking of the gameplay. What are your thoughts on the gameplay? How did it play for you?
Yeah, oh my goodness.
This could be a big one.
Yeah, I've got lots to say on the gameplay. I've even got some notes here. There's so much. I really, really liked how this game plays. I felt like there were so many interesting decisions.
There were just options.
Yeah, every point, every single turn I had, and I'm not just talking like, each round, I'm talking like every single time I'm placing an agent out, I felt like I was having to question, is this really what I want to do, so many interesting choices. It did lead to analysis paralysis and sometimes, like the game length can stretch out a bit because you're left there umming and ahhing, and I'm feeling bad because I'm delaying other people's turns and that sort of stuff. But it's analysis paralysis in a good way. I always felt like I had, lots of things I wanted to do, but especially when you're only dealing with 2 agents before you get that 3rd agent, you really, where do I want to go? Where's the spot that's going to help me out?
I think you're right. Like at the start of the game, it feels like there are so many options and where do I go? But as the game goes on, I found the options, there was less of them. I had 3 agents, so I was able to go to more places, but you had 3 agents, so there was places already taken, and I might not have had the right cards in my hand to go to certain places. So as the game went on, I think the amount of options I had got fewer, but there was still plenty to choose from of what to do.
Yeah, look, completely understand. I think, that you mentioned that balance of, do I have the cards to actually go to the locations that I care about?
Yeah.
At the start of the game, some locations are more appealing than others. There's this really nice game arc where, some locations are sought after, quite early on, and then as you get towards the later stage of the game, there are locations that are more sought after, and some of those initial ones are no longer as valuable, right? And so, it's quite bizarre. You're always left, pulling against your opponent as to, who's going to take this spot that I really want to take and that sort of thing. So really tight board, especially in the later stages of the game, and you find yourself, especially with 3 agents, you're going, there's lots of places that have been taken that I want to go, and you might find yourself struggling to actually find a spot for that 3rd agent.
Yeah, I found that as well. I guess one of the things I did really enjoy in the gameplay was the intrigue cards. I loved the intrigue cards. Just getting these random chance cards that could give you power in combat, or they could be for the end of the game, and having them there, and they're kind of intimidating you because you don't know what I've got, and maybe I've got cards that are going to make my army really strong and come out and beat you easily, or maybe they're going to give me points at the end. There's just so many options, and I just love the unexpected and interesting aspects that they added.
Yeah, those intrigue cards are really, really fun. Like they add this, hidden information pop to the game that just it's just really, really fun, and the fact that they can be used in different areas, right? You can use them during your reveal phase to suddenly bring up your combat score and take over someone, or they can be used at the end of the game for extra victory points, and you're always left as an opponent looking over at this other person and going, you've got some hidden intrigue cards there, and what are they?
I'm worried about those.
Exactly right. So it really makes you second guess what you're going to do in terms of how many units are you putting into the conflict and that sort of stuff. So really like those intrigue cards. In terms of the conflict sort of surprises in general, so talking about those intrigue cards and being able to bring them out during conflict, I love the way that the actual cards work in the gameplay. So there's the deck building element to it. From the market, you can buy awesome combos, cards that work really well together, but also just individual powerful cards. I think in the first game that I played, I bought this card I think it cost eight sort of currency to
which is
purchase
an expensive card in the game.
It is, very expensive. But when I played that card, it allowed me to basically reuse an agent and place it anywhere on the board and that sort of thing.
It's like an extra turn.
Exactly, it just felt
Very
so powerful. Didn't
yeah.
need to combo with any other card. It was just like, I'm going to play this and feel awesome about it.
Yeah.
That was cool. But each card has two ways in which it can be used. Do you want to play this card to go to a location and get the agent ability on it, or do you want to keep this card in your hand to use it during your reveal phase to either increase your conflict score or go shopping for bigger and better cards? And that left me constantly weighing up options in my hand as well. Over and over again I felt myself making these interesting decisions in the game, trying to pick from different cards. I loved it. Just constantly working my brain. Any
I think the last thing I wanted to mention was the scoring in the game. So the scoring was really simple. There wasn't too much to it. There's the track that keeps you going until the end game. However, I felt that I just wanted there to be like that surprise at the end of the game, or have some of the leftover resources being used for something, because the games can end quite unexpectedly. You're not always sure that the game's going to end. It might have a few more cards of rounds, but someone sneaks up and suddenly has 10 points and the game's over, and you're going, oh, but I've got all these resources and things built up that I haven't been able to use, and it just felt a bit disappointing that they didn't count for something.
Yeah, look, I sort of agree with that, right? We've played a few games, and I remember the very first game, it felt anticlimactic. We were playing for like 2 hours. It was, I had a lot of fun playing the game, and, everyone was inching up that victory point track. But then I think it might have been myself actually, managed to hit that 10-point mark, and then it was just, the game was sort of over. There's only a few, at least that I'm aware of, there's only a few sort of cards that, change those victory points after the game sort of wraps up. So, you kind of play out that round, and then at the end, it's like, well, what you see on the track is what you get.
It doesn't
it's very
change.
much just, that's it. So you can, almost predict the winner, I guess. And
it makes it a bit less suspenseful.
I agree.
It's enjoyable in a game to have that, oh, it's so tight, who's going to win?
Yeah, that sort of, that wrap-up moment, right? That, okay, the game's ended, but now, let's figure out who's actually won, where's that sort of thing. So, I completely agree, but then, as you sort of mentioned, you can finish the game quite quickly. So there is, there are these times where basically any point, once you're up around the 6 victory point mark, you can, like, the game can end in that round. It's surprisingly easy, especially when you're in sort of the last 4 turns of the game, where there's potentially 2 victory points up for grabs from the conflict cards. You can suddenly, someone can just gain 5+ points in that one round, and you're going, oh wow, that finishes the game. I loved that. I loved the in terms of like player interaction between one another, there's a few different ways in which people interact here. So you've got, as with kind of any worker placement type of game, you can steal someone's location, and so it gets, you're watching your opponent and you're trying to figure out, oh, where are you going to go? Where am I going to go? And so there's that bit of, cheekiness where you can take a spot that you thought an opponent was going to take. And that's always fun. You can steal a card that you think your opponent might want to, buy from the market. So that's a bit of fun as well. But then on top of that, there's the aptly named conflict where, there is,
it's a battle. Who's going to win?
Exactly, it is. And nothing's more heartbreaking than you're putting in like 5 units to try and secure this win, and then someone comes along with either an intrigue card or some fantastic.
Well, it's heartbreaking if it happens to you, but if you're the one playing the intrigue card, it feels great.
Yes. Look, very very true. The grass is always greener on the other side there. So that conflict, but this is it. And there's one other sort of piece where there's player interaction and I guess a little bit of conflict there, and that's stealing alliance tokens from one another. If you get higher on the faction track than someone else, then you can take that alliance token, and there's a 2-point victory point shift there. But none of it feels mean as such. I really like it. It feels like there's this, you know, backwards and forwards and cheeky things happening here and there and surprise moments, you know, each combat round and that sort of stuff. But none of it really feels like, oh man, that's so, you know, that's so rough. You know, they were always always.
It doesn't feel
moments,
unfair.
right?
It just feels like that's how the game goes.
Yep, exactly. I think one other thing that I wanted to touch on was also the asymmetric. Oh my goodness. The leader powers, right? So there's there's maybe like 8 different leaders that come out of the standard box, and all of their powers felt fun to use. You know, they don't necessarily change the game in like a game breaking way. Like if it almost feels like a bonus to sort of utilize your leader. That they're not so strong that it's like you have to make use of this or it's all going to go horribly wrong for you. But at the same time, you know, using their powers always felt rewarding, and it was like, yes, cool, I get to do this. You know, so I really like that they've got those. You know,
and each character's powers did feel quite varied. None of them were too similar, and each one that you chose to play with gave the game a bit of a different feel.
Yeah, I completely agree there.
I guess talking about that and talking about the different characters, we could move on to replayability. The game retails for about $90 here. Do you think it's a worthwhile purchase for people?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think this is a fantastic game for replayability purposes. As I said, those different leaders that you can use, I think, you know, playing with each one of those in itself gives you just enough variation to, you know, have fun with it, right? To kind of make each game feel fairly different. But then on top of that, there's a stack of cards and deck building options. You've got, you've got interaction with other people and that sort of stuff. They're going to take the spots that you wanted to take and that sort of thing. So you're never going to be able to play out, you know, the game is never going to play out exactly the same as one that you've, you know, has played before, right? And so I really think there's a high amount of replayability here. I think there's plenty of you know, strategies that you can explore and move forward with. And again, playing with other people is going to change that dramatically as well. I think as well, player count changes how the game plays. I mean, we've unfortunately not played with 4 players yet, but you know, but between just 3 and 2, it's dramatic. So when you're playing with 2, there's an AI, an AI that you know, plays alongside you, and they're just kind of a nuisance on the board, and they you know, ensure that there's some surprises when it comes to the conflict, and they move up on the faction track. So they kind of put a timer on there and that sort of thing, but wasn't huge, and with 3 players, suddenly it's like the board feels so much tighter than you know, when you're playing with the AI. And I imagine if you start playing with 4 players,
there's even less spaces you can go to.
I'm really fascinated as to how that might play out. But I imagine that in terms of replayability, even just shifting the amount of players that you're playing with is actually going to change the way the game plays dramatically. And again, not played solo, but there's an AI that you can play against solo, and I'm sure that shifts the game up, you know, quite dramatically as well. So I think you know, for $90 for the base game, you're laughing here. Plenty of replayability.
Last of all, we have like an overall, you know, have any final thoughts or overall scores for the game?
So look, again, I've got some notes here, but there's not really much to talk on. So overall, I think I've said it already in the review, I loved this game. I really always felt like I was thinking about something and doing something. Very rarely was I going, very, very rarely was I doing, you know, sort of nothing, right? So I really, really liked it. I don't think much more than kind of the gameplay stuff that I've mentioned. I don't think I've got too much additional to lead with.
A score for the game?
So I'm coming in hot here. I'm rating this a 10. Like, I love
perfect game.
I love this game. You know, it's got some little niggly bits. You know, the component cards, I need to figure out what's going on with those. I would love to see the giant worms provide some sort of threat there, you know, within the game. But look, I honestly, played this a few times now. I've loved every single time I've played it.
Yeah.
I want to play it more. I want to try new strategies. I can't really ask for anything else, right?
Yeah.
Even those conflict moments, sometimes I can find, conflict within games to be quite jarring, and randomness and that sort of stuff to affect me. This game just at no point did it really leave me going, oof, that's no good. I just had fun from start to finish, and what more can I ask for from a game? Yeah.
Sounds good. I guess I also really enjoyed the game. The games were quite long, so we were looking at about 2 hours for the games we played. But at the end of that 2 hours, I was like, oh, the game's finished. I want to keep playing. I've still got these goals that I'm trying to achieve. I still had these leftover resources, and I'd planned out these next turns that I want to do. So I was disappointed when the game finished, which I think is a sign that it's a fun game, and I was really enjoying playing with it. So I think I'm probably going to give it a 9, and the only reason, it's not a 10 is just the not knowing the IP and not feeling that connection to the game in that way. Other than that, brilliant game.
Completely fair enough. I think having some sort of affiliation with the Dune IP definitely helps, but as your score kind of points out, you certainly don't need it there. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you've enjoyed it, and hopefully we see you again and you see us again, and we all have some more fun. All right.
Bye.
See you guys.